another week and another pair of Amphibia episodes for me to cram the discussion of into a single video. Though, for a slightly more unfortunate reason than last time. Whereas last time it was a pair of episodes that I still found very fun and memorable, but I still didn't really have a ton to say about either of them. This time I actually have some criticisms, unfortunately. Like, these episodes weren't bad quality-wise. Technically, they weren't bad episodes or anything. I don't have a ton to say about these either. And if I never revisited them, I wouldn't bat an eye. I found these episodes kind of disappointing. And part of that is because the locations featured in these episodes, the aesthetic of the episodes, the themes of the episodes, not like the character themes, but like the like location themes. I don't really find either of them all that compelling. One was generic sci-fi / fantasy desert with big wormy boys, which, if that's your thing, great. The other one was a truck stop. I'm not a big fan of trucker stories. So already the two episodes didn't really do it for me in that regard. And then I didn't really think the stories were all that great either, honestly. And I gotta say, man, right out the gate, I really hope this doesn't become a pattern. Like, we had the little Old West town in the episode with the tiny little Froggo's Ballad of Hoppediah Planner. But that was like a tiny Old West town. And it was only an Old West town because there was a showdown in it. So it felt right for it to be an Old West style town. Right? But like, at the start of the season, the land outside of the valley had such a cool, like, I don't even know how to describe it, like, rough fantasy with a secret underground tech vibe. And now it's just starting to kind of feel like Midwestern USA. And that's a bit of a bummer to me. Which is not to say there haven't been any fantasy-esque elements to these. The first of the two episodes ended with a showdown between the family and a rock, which is a giant mythical bird. And the second of the two had the giant sandwormy boys. So there's still fantasy / kind of sci-fi elements to these episodes. It's not like super contemporary, but it also just kind of feels super contemporary compared to what we've been getting up to this point, I guess. Also, I was kind of starting to think that all of the giant creatures in this world were somehow either plant or insect based, and then we got a giant bird. I don't know, maybe I'm not remembering something from season 1 that already broke the pattern, but that felt like it broke the pattern to me. I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm just nitpicking when really I don't need to be nitpicking. The first of the two episodes, Truck Stop Polly, was, I think, probably my least favorite of the two, and the one I'm going to be talking about the most here. It's an episode about Polly not getting as much attention as she wants from the rest of the family, and then after she eventually goes a little too far and makes it necessary for them to stop at the truck stop in the first place. I don't feel the need to go more into detail than that, honestly. She even overhears the family talking about how they're starting to think they should have left her back at home with somebody watching her. And they do the stinking misunderstanding plotline that's in every frickin' sitcom and rom-com ever made, where clearly they're talking about how they think it would be better for her to be back home with someone who can show her more attention, but she mistakes it as them not wanting her around, which definitely isn't true, because they brought her with them despite the fact that she would be significantly safer back home, right? They obviously want her here. And then she walks away before she can hear the rest of the conversation, which put what they said in a different context anyway. It was just very textbook, that trope. And when done well, that trope can be fine, but this was just such a standard instance of it. I didn't really get anything out of it at all, except there's a scene where Polly is telling her story to a bunch of truckers at the truck stop, at the diner counter inside the truck stop, And she expects them to be all surly about it and just agree with her so that they have something to be surly about. But instead, they explain to her exactly why the situation is more complicated than she's making it out to be, and how maybe she's at fault as much as, if not more so, than the rest of them are, because it's not as if they weren't giving her attention that she needed when they could have. They literally couldn't in the examples that were shown at the beginning of the episode, right? They were doing other important things that were necessary to the safety of this voyage that they are undertaking, which has just been danger at every turn, right? And even before Polly finds out that she's accidentally doomed the entire family, she does seem to feel bad about the way she reacted, so that's good. And then she finds out, because they've already left her behind at this point, which sounds bad, but there's a reason for it. She took a rock, which turned out to be the egg of that giant bird that I mentioned previously, that kind of looked like her, and dressed it up like her, and put it in her little bed. It's like a bucket or something, right? And the rest of the family, feeling bad that they hadn't had enough time for her lately and not wanting to disturb her while they think she's sleeping, don't realize it's not her and end up leaving without her, only for her to find out that the rock is actually the egg of this dangerous creature. And when she finds this out, she does go after them and ends up saving them from the creature, which is great, because it was about to eat Bessie, which was terrifying. I don't know why it terrified me as much as it did, but I found that terrifying. So it's not as if Polly didn't learn anything in the episode, and it's not as if she didn't mostly might be a strong word. Kind of might also be a strong word. She, at least in some way or another, made up for part of the trouble that she caused them by being so petty as to replace herself with this dangerous object. And I know she's literally a baby, but she's a baby who, cognitively at least, is usually treated as if she's at least almost on par with the other characters, right? I don't feel like this episode punished her enough. Like, I don't want everybody hating on the character or anything, but the episode ends with the other characters apologizing to her for not being able to give her as much attention as she wants. And I don't think they should have done that, because frankly, I don't think they did anything wrong. Doing the jobs necessary to protect the family from horrific dangers and ensure that they reach their destination without dying, I think are pretty important, right? I don't know. I don't hate Polly or anything. And I do think the point of the episode was that she learned from the mistakes that she made here. But the ending just didn't sit right with me. I can't entirely articulate why. But I just didn't like it. Maybe it's in part because the involvement of the giant bird creature felt kind of gratuitous too. Like, there's this one cool shot where all of its limbs shoot out of the what are they calling it, the fwagon, causing a bunch of damage, which was interesting. It looked good. It was kind of funny, but it felt very gratuitous. Like, I don't know why there needed to be an action scene here at all. Why couldn't Polly have just heard those truckers dropping truth bombs, realized that she was wrong, and then rushed back to her family to apologize? And then they apologized too for not being able to show her as much attention as she'd like. And they meet in the middle and realize that both sides could probably be doing better, because they could be trying to budget their time better so they can still show her more attention, right? That is also a thing that could be happening. Sure. I don't know. I'm rambling. I just didn't particularly like this episode. Though I will say, even though the setting was probably the most contemporary setting we've ever had in this show before, ever, aside from just like generic castle or tower or something, which doesn't even feel contemporary because that's not something I see every day, but that's beside the point. I did like that they still snuck in little details here or there, like the fact that the truckers use like giant bugs as like the base for their vehicles, and when we see the family pull up at what would be a gas pump, instead of a gas pump, it's a spot where Bessie can drink this nectar-y stuff, which I guess is what she eats. Those details were cool. I just didn't feel like they justified the entire episode. And I don't feel that the entire episode justified the entire episode either, if that makes sense. The second of these two episodes, A Caravan Named Desire, I think is what it's called. I'm going to check real quick. Yes, that is correct. The second of these two episodes, A Caravan Named Desire, while I liked it better, I also have far less to say about it. Because, like, both of these episodes are filler. They're very traditional filler. And I don't feel like they're up to the same standard as the fillery episodes from the first half of Season 1. I also thought this one had a very contemporary kind of plot, a very tropey kind of plot, in the same way that I thought the whole misunderstanding aspect of Truck Stop Polly, completely forgot the name of the episode there for a second, just like I thought that was very tropey and contemporary and boring because of it, I thought this episode's plot was very contemporary and tropey and boring because of it. At the beginning of the episode, we find out that Hop Pop has always been interested in the theater, which I guess makes sense. Sprig, we know, is a musician. Maybe performance art just runs in the family, right? But we find out he has this interest in the theater and being an actor. And then they just so happen to be saved by a caravan from one of those giant sandworm things that I mentioned, by a caravan of actors who cast Hop Pop in the lead in their play, only for him to, soon after that, learn that the plays are just distractions for the company members who aren't currently on stage to stage robberies of local banks in the towns that they visit. They are an acting company and a company of thieves simultaneously, and Hop Pop does eventually point out that they're thieves in time for authorities to stop the robberies from happening, but it's only after technically the robberies have already happened. He just stops them from getting away with the money. It takes him a long time to decide to stand up for his principles at the cost of this dream that he's apparently always had. Maybe this is something like when I couldn't recall whether or not we'd seen Sprig with the violin. Maybe we did know that Hop Pop always wanted to be an actor, but I don't think so. And if so, it never felt like a big enough aspect of his character that they would bring it up again, that they would feel the need to bring it up again. And they reminded us of it at the beginning of this episode, or else informed us of it at the beginning of this episode. So if it is something we were told before, they felt like we needed to be reminded of it, right? It just feels like this trait was given to the character to justify them telling this, I thought, kind of boring story, rather than the character's traits informing what kind of story they decide to tell. And I think that's bad storytelling. Though that's not to say I hated this episode. There were still good things in it. This episode brought up the whole Sprig has never really had friends thing again, when he does some really comedic stuff in kind of the background of the episode to appeal to the younger members of the troupe and try to get in with them. Like, they kind of sent the wrong message, because he, like, tries super freaking hard to conform in order to fit in with their group. And, like, sure, there's nothing wrong with shifting the way you present yourself a little bit to better relate with people, but you shouldn't fundamentally change who you are just to be accepted, right? That sends a bad message. Still, they were pretty funny scenes, and this felt less like a B-plot than it felt like they were just bringing up that aspect of Sprig's character again so that maybe they could do something with it in the future. So I don't know, maybe that's what the plan was, and if so, great. It will give this episode a reason for existing aside from filling time. There's also a plot line with Anne in the background where she is trying to have some alone time. And there's one scene in particular where everybody, pretty much, I think it's actually literally all the other main characters. Yeah, they all interrupt her and get advice from her and then completely misinterpret the advice. That was a very funny scene. I enjoyed it a lot, and it did bump the episode up a couple of points for me. And I even, in a weird roundabout way, like that, well, Hot Pop did do the right thing in the end. It took him a while to make that choice, because he was weighing his principles against the realization of a dream. It makes sense that he would have been kind of conflicted there. And also, I gotta say, I didn't hate the villain of the episode. Like, she does jump some cops as she's breaking into the bank, so already she's got that going for her. And also, she was interesting and charismatic, and I feel like could become a recurring character if they decide to somehow work her into further plots. So maybe that's another thing that will come from this episode down the line. And it's not like I didn't expect some of these episodes to be fillery, right? I did expect this season of the show to follow something similar to the storytelling pattern of season 1, where the first half was kind of fillery, and then the second half was much more serious and not exactly serialized, but more tied together and exciting and built upon the stuff that we learned in the aforementioned filler. I just feel like, as far as filler goes, they could have done better. But again, I want to reiterate, I didn't hate these episodes or anything. I don't feel slighted for having watched them. I just don't feel like I'm ever going to need to watch them again, if that makes sense. That said, though, what did you guys think of a Truck Stop Polly and a Caravan named Desire, if you have seen them? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.